rebuild, and you come today to give me a hand with some detailing of the track and around the yard for southern New South Wales look. And the importance of getting the paint right. Tell me about why it's so important to get the paint consistency right.
Well, normally when you get paint, we're using an automotive paint, which I went to a shop locally where I live, and I chose an appropriate sort of browny type colour, probably more so than the reds that a lot of people, the rough colours that a lot of people use. And we've mixed it up thoroughly with a paint stick, and then we've actually strained it through a very, very, very fine sieve so that we get all the little particles out, because if you don't get that out, it blocks up your air gun, and then you're constantly cleaning it the whole time. And then we add thinners to it, and you want the paint probably a little bit thinner than what milk would be. That's a consistency I find works quite well. Actually, we're using a new gun here that Dallas bought. This one's a dual action one, and it's got quite a big reservoir on the top here, which is ideal for painting track, because if you have the bottle on the bottom, you can't get down nice and low. See how low you can get that? And this has got a big reservoir on the top as well, but it's quite a good gun. I'm very impressed with it.
Well, Greg, you've sprayed all the track now, and you can see how much more realistic it now looks. Now it's time to get the areas between the tracks looking very realistic. So what's the process here?
Okay, we've got some very fine sand, which I've sieved on here in between the tracks. And before I put the glue on, I've actually sprayed it with a bit of wet water. That's water with a little bit of dishwashing liquid. Just makes it so that when you hit it with the glue mix, it spreads a lot better than just straight on. I don't use a very strong mix. A lot of people say 50-50, but I find that can be just a bit much sometimes. If ever you want to do a modification down the track and change something around because it's not quite how you want it, if the glue mixture is too strong, in other words, a 50-50, you have a lot harder job of lifting it up. At the end of the day, it doesn't really take much to hold it in there, so you'd be surprised at how weak you can have it and how that will still bond it all together.
Well, it was interesting because this first part we had done 2.5, 3 years ago, and in all honesty, it only took me like 2 hours to rip the whole lot up and then to redo it again. So as you can see, Greg's just applying the diluted PVA mix, and then the next part will be around this sand tower here. We're going to make that nice and sandy. In New South Wales, these towers were used to top up the sand boxes of engines, so they always had sand scattered around. So by the end of the day, this will be looking very realistic. So just dampening down now the sand, authentic sand that we've been able to garner from the garden, and that will form the basis of the next layer of scenery here, Greg. A little bit of glue to hold it down again, and we're using pieces of cardboard here as well to to mask up areas too, because you don't really want to have the sand in the ballast as well. So certainly coming on. Greg's just loading up now the static grass applicator using one of the little small Pico units, which is ideal for getting just in between the tracks. We usually use a larger static grass applicator, but for this area, which is delicate between the tracks, you want to use a smaller one. So Greg, what's the secret to getting static grass to work properly?
Well, I find that I like to use like a matte spray. Once I've got the initial, I've got some ground foam down here first, and then I go over, I'll just show you here, I'll spray a bit of glue this mat spray acts as an adhesive. You've got to have something that's tacky so that the grass will just instantly grab and stand up straight away.
Because some people use Aquadeer and water, but I think it's not tacky enough, really, is it?
It's too wet, and what happens when the static grass hits it, it just lays flat.
Yes. So
Just switch that on.
and you can see it just coming out nice and fine. This is a very nice and fine static grass, you know, half dead, half alive type grass, which is sort of typical of, southern areas of New South Wales. Of course, some parts of this layout are modelled in greener times, and there's other parts where it was a bit drier. But doesn't really matter, because it's always going to rain someday, and it's always going to be dry another day.
And there we have it. Okay, we're just going to put a few tufts of grass in here. These are ones that I've made myself. Basically use the Glad baking paper, and I just put a dab of neat PVA glue, and then I put the grounding clip, I attach it to the paper, and then I just wave the the big static grass thing over the top, and then you get these little tiny tufts that stand up. So what we're going to do is just use a little bit of neat PVA. And just put that in there like that. I normally like to have a grouping of them.
Well, weeds always grow together, and then there's usually a bit of a clear patch with weeds. Not that New South Wales Railways knew how to spray their weeds properly anyway. You'll generally find there won't be a yard anywhere where there's not weeds or grass growing between the tracks anywhere. So it's just a simple matter of placing them down. White glue eventually goes clear, and then from down at track level, they start to look pretty realistic. So Greg, it's all about the layers, really, isn't it? You know, when you look at modelling, you're building up layers and layers of scenery to get to where you want to go.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So what we've done here, originally this was just painted like a dirty brown colour, and then we've got some like a medium grey sand that we use. We've glued that down. We let that dry a little bit, probably for about an hour, and then here I've got a little bit of ground foam, the very fine stuff. I put that in. As I saw before, we had some tufts, so we're just going to add a few more now along this area here.
And this little goods shed we had just before lunch, and Greg pointed out that it had brand new stumps on it, and railways always used to creosote the stumps of buildings, so we got to it with some murky brown during the lunch break, and that looks a lot better, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
They do eventually come off. So we're progressing along, Greg. You've got the big applicator out for some of the larger areas. Makes more sense to use this bigger applicator for the larger areas. So a little bit more static grass down the side, which integrates the old and the new together. Bigger applicator is good for the larger areas. We use the little one in where the tracks are fairly tight. So. There you have it. New static grass. Standing up quite nicely. Well, Greg, looks like we've had a good day here. As you can see, we've done all this new static grass, we've weathered the track. So just run us through what the process has been today.
Well, the first thing we did today, we went through and we painted with an airbrush all of the rails, and you always get a bit of overspray on the ballast, so it was quite a pale grey. So that's dulled it right down now because we've got this lovely brown colour that we use all over. Then after we did that, then we filled in between the tracks. We used a bit of very fine grey sand. Then we added a bit of ground foam, static grass clumps, that sort of thing. And yeah, it's looking great now. You know, there's still a little bit more work to be done. You know, a layout is never finished when it comes to scenery. You know, you can always add bits and pieces. But you've got to be careful though. You know, you can overdo it a little bit. Less is more, as they say.
It looks like, you know, we've got some sand now around the sand tower, which was prototypical in New South Wales. So thank you very much for the day. It looks very nice to integrate this new part, and it's a very fine job fitting in with the rest of the Kingsview Model Railway. Thanks, Greg.
No problem. We had fun.